paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, that's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery, your podcaster's favorite podcast, as Jason would say, if he were here, which he is not this week, lucky us, and home of fun facts like this. DJ, did you know that there are 300,000 plus Flesh and Blood players in the world?
That's not a fun fact.
That fact is very fun.
You know what is a fun fact? I learned on this very podcast several years ago that 33% of all woodchipper-related incidents on the job happen at least 3 years after you start working with a woodchipper. So, like, that just means you get... It's just a life lesson to not get complacent, you know? On day one, you're careful. You're just putting logs in there. And then after a few months, you're just using your foot to just drop kick logs through the machine or, like, karate chop stuff in there. And then that's how people get hurt. So that's the most important lesson I've ever learned from Brainstorm Brewery.
I see.
And it's way more important than your Flesh and Blood thing. Whatever that was. I wasn't even listening.
Okay, well, I have another fun fact for you. Did you know that as of March 2021, more than 34 billion Pokemon cards have been sold worldwide?
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
Okay, so you got to work on your stuff. You got to work on your... I thought you were going to be... You know what another fun fact is, DJ? We have an awesome guest on. We have Kyle Lopez here from Through the Decades. He's been on this podcast before, but it's been many, many years. Good to have you with us, Kyle. See, Corbin, that's
and no. You DJ, you just are short. The fun fact is that Kyle is an expert in all these other games that I'm bringing up. You see, it all ties together in the end, but you got impatient. Regardless, Kyle, an expert on all of these games we're going to talk about tonight, as well as a guest on this podcast. I think we just said conservatively 300 episodes ago. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Long time ago, like 2014.
We were all different people back then. I was in college. Corbin was...
No kids. No kids.
I was very different for sure.
The world was happier then also, as it turns out. You know, we were all not linked by a general sense of dread and doom. But hey, that's what Brainstorm Brewery is here. The next hour of your lives is going to be some good information because Kyle is someone who has a lot of experience, not just in Magic, but in other games as well. And today we're going to talk about how some of those other games, including sort of the big ones like Pokemon, compared to Magic in, sort of the year of our Lord 2022. Jason's farting around in Seattle this weekend, hanging out with Magic players, but not playing Magic as I understand it. So in his absence, we're going to have some fun. Because when Jason's here, it's no fun. It's all business. He never wants to joke
Okay,
around.
so like
tonight,
I'll shit on Jason when he deserves it, but he is fun. No, you're wrong.
I'm wrong. Okay. Never heard that one before. And we're off and running. Let's go. Hey, Kyle, where can people find you across the internet, and what are you up to these days?
So basically, I am Bash McAllister on Twitter, Bash McAllister on Instagram. You can also find our online store, cardrich.io, on Instagram. We'll have a website up pretty soon. Mostly dealing in slabs and stuff like that, like graded cards. So what am I up to? Man, that's a loaded question. It's been a while. I've been through a lot. I am basically I went into business with a really good friend of mine, Rob Highlander, and another good friend of mine, Alex Spears. Alex founded and made Through the Decades in Louisville what it is today, which is a 20,000 square foot collectible market. We do Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, some Digimon. We do Lego,
for-
video games, sports.
For people who might not be as spatially inclined, what does a 20,000 store look like? What did that used to be?
A Office Depot.
Okay, so that's a good like frame of reference, I think, for people.
great.
That's a
agree.
big store.
It is
That
a
is
massive
massive.
store. I brought a couple friends there, and their jaw, Keith being one of them, one of our mutual friends, his jaw hit the floor. He was like, "This is insane." So it was a dream. So when I met Alex, he was in through the decades was in a pretty decent sized store, like a 4,000, 6,000 square foot store with a warehouse in the back, with a little room in the back. We did a bunch of business together, and then me and Rob and Alex kind of put our heads together, and we started an online business. As well as through the decades. And the whole time, this is before COVID, the whole time he was staring across the street going, there's an empty Office Depot there. It's been there for 2 years. I'm going to get that store. And we were like, sure you are, Alex. Sure you are. And then sure enough, through sheer force of will, he made it happen. And it is actually incredible, honestly. And we all kind of share the same vision. Rob is essentially the brains. I'm the brawn. And Alex is kind of the leader, if you will. I mean, Alex is the will. So Alex,
the banner holder.
Exactly. He's like, look, man, the battle may be like look bad, but we're doing this. I mean,
He's the Braveheart guy. Yeah.
Yeah, just a great example. That come off the top of my head. Before COVID, right when COVID started getting serious, like Louisville was one of the first places to lock down. To their credit, we were like, what are we gonna do? We have, all of our personal assets are tied up in these projects. What are we going to do? Are we going to just fire sell everything? What should we do? And he just goes, nope, we're going to stay the course. And me and Rob looked at him like, dude, the world is shutting down. Are you sure about this? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. We're going to do it. And then sure enough, everybody knows how collectibles did over the last year and a half, 2 years. They absolutely exploded. To his credit, he just saw through the veil. You know what I mean? And I think our three heads together, we really are onto something. We have a lot of really cool stuff planned. I can just say that, I'll just say this as like a little taste. An 18,000 square foot showroom, in Louisville is just the beginning. Our vision is something like this everywhere in the biggest cities. We want everybody to be able to experience what Alex mostly has been able to do in Louisville. And that's kind of where we're at. We have that. And then we also do shows like we did this weekend, DJ. Not magic shows, mixed game shows like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, like those type of shows, right? Collecticon is a big one that we do.
I mean, Corbin kind of prefaced this a little bit that the show was going to be somewhat non-magic focused. And like, I think that's understandable that it would take a lot to fill an Office Depot of just Magic cards and Magic diverse enough product lines. Like, I don't care how many Chandra plushies you have. Like that doesn't check out. So like, like what does that mean just in terms of collectibles? Like that's such a wide. Like,
so the idea before the big store, through the decades did Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Sports. Those were the four, right? That was it. And the idea was, look, we kind of turned down a lot of stuff that comes to the store. We turned down Legos, we turned down figurines, we turned down video games. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have a place for all of that stuff. I mean, the store's so big. We did a Yu-Gi-Oh! Regional recently. We had seating for 500 players, like, in the store. So for us, like, center. It was... I mean, Alex is a really big guy in sports, one of the biggest in the country, in my opinion. He probably wouldn't say that, but I'll give him the credit that he deserves. Sports is massive for us. That's like that's the left wall, essentially. I
think that would be really surprising to a lot of Magic players who listen to this podcast. Who don't know.
Okay, so I used to own a GP circuit company called Aether Games, which was in its own kind of situations back in the day. That ended up becoming 95. I sold out, and that became 95 MTG, which is still around today. And when I was doing that, I had this mindset that like Magic is the be all end all. And through the years, I've realized that like Magic is kind of in a bad place for a number of reasons. But not only that, but like Magic is not the be all end all. I learn stuff every time I go to these other events, from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball or Pokemon or even the National, which is the biggest baseball card collection or trading sports card convention ever. We're talking 150,000. No, I think last year was 300,000 actual people showed up to the National. It's at the Convention Center in Chicago. It's the biggest convention I've ever been to. It makes Gen Con look small, if that puts that in perspective. So I used to think Magic was the be all end all, but like what I've realized is like there's so much more out there. Like Yu-Gi-Oh does things really interesting, good and bad. Pokemon does things, in my opinion, mostly good. They do some bad things, but there's also Flesh and Blood, which I think is honestly just like, I don't want to say
Magic
this,
2.
Corbin. It's like,
Is it just Magic 2?
it's Magic. It's like a carbon copy of some of the worst parts of Magic, but then also they do collectability in a better way. But I don't know. I tried to play the game. I didn't like it, but I'm not, I don't know. What I'm getting at is there's a lot more out there. And if especially from the Magic audience, people just think of only Magic, but these other games are like interesting. They're doing cool stuff. They're very collectible. For the finance segment, there's a lot of money in these other games, like period, a lot.
So when you say collectible, I think a lot of people's minds flash back to the concept of like collecting an entire set of Arabian Nights and doing so by attending physical events or gatherings and trading your cards for other people's cards, or slowly acquiring something through like a single store's inventory, we live in an era where you can click a button or talk to your Alexa and buy an entire set of whatever. If you have the bank account, you can collect it whatever you want. You can Logan Paul your way through something. So what does collecting mean? Like for Magic, for Pokemon, for sports, what does that mean? Does people know?
So Pokemon's a great example because in my opinion, Pokemon does the collecting the best. So Magic is 95% players, maybe 5%, a lot less in my opinion, but let's say 5% collectors.
And those collectors also play. Like it's like guy who plays Magic who has a binder of dragons. Like that guy's not a collector.
Then when a new card comes out, the first thing people think of is what deck can I put this in? When Pokemon, a new card comes out, it's like, that's a cool looking Pokemon. Is that my favorite Pokemon? I'm going to want to collect that. I'm going to want to get that, right? So Charizard's a great example. Every Charizard is basically unplayable in the game. Like they're like essentially like a 6 mana whatever that you would never cast in any kind of competitive game. But it's Charizard. The reason it's popular is because of the TV show. And it's like a number of reasons, the manga and like the video games and all of it put together. There's all these multimedia aspects that make these things really popular with collectors. So you have like almost every Pokemon is somebody's favorite Pokemon, right? So for me, that's a big thing. Real quick, I just have one thing. For me, my first, so I'm a boomer, but I'm a boomer adjacent. I'm almost 40, but that's important because my first Pokemon game that I ever played was Legends Arceus. It's a fun game. It's fantastic. I recommend it to anybody. But my first Pokemon that I got was Luxray. My best performing Pokemon was Hisuian Typhlosion. So now forever, I'm going to want really cool versions of those Pokemon because of the memory that game created. Magic doesn't really have that, right? You have your favorite decks of the past, but nobody's collecting Jace. Nobody's collecting Chandra. Nobody's collecting Kozilek, right? There's cool versions that you can put in your decks, but they're not showing them off, which is what people do in the Pokemon community. They slab them. They put them on Instagram. They talk about them. They talk about why they're their favorite Pokemon. You don't really see a lot of that in Magic. That's what collecting is to me, is getting something that you really like, building this massive pile of the cool stuff because of those types of emotional connections.
I think that is some very good insight into why this industry exists in a lot of ways, right? That speaks to how people spend money on these things, why collectibles have value at all. And I mean, like, Wizards gets the monetary aspects of it, but we were talking before the cast, a lot of it is based on the playability.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I think a lot of people understand that Magic could be in that spot. Magic as a brand, as like a concept, and as a multiverse, it has room for that.
Absolutely.
But we don't have like a Karibo, really.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
We don't have a Poro. We don't have something that is just a cute.
We don't have a Vegeta.
Ball.
Like we don't have. Okay, this is just right by my desk, right? We don't have a Vegeta. Like we don't have something cool like look how cool this card is.
And,
People are. This is all textured too. This isn't just like foil. This is all, you can feel the difference on this card. And go ahead.
In terms of like character design, I think we do have the potential for that. I think that like
we absolutely do. Yeah,
Vegeta's the edgelord. He's the cool, sassy Sasuke. He's the one that like is the brooding we have Soren, and they could do stuff with Soren, and they've tried, like the Dracula stuff was like, but like they haven't gone all in. They haven't done the work to make it like there be a $700 Soren card.
It's very much surface level. So the one example that I always bring up is Flibbith or whatever, right? It's like they made Flibbith.
Yeah.
Fibblethip.
Yes.
They made Fibblethip, whatever, plushies and stuff. But it's like there was nothing to tie you to that. Like they wanted to make it cool. And the thing with Magic and the thing with cool things is you can't make things cool. They're either cool or they're not cool, right? Vegeta's cool because of the stories that Dragon Ball Z told. Right, and because of who he is and how his character developed, who knows anything about Fibblethip? He's like just in random character, which is like a fun little thing. It's a meme. That's surface level. Yeah, so I'm really passionate about this because one of the things that I learned doing these other games is they do that type of stuff. Even Yu-Gi-Oh, they do it really, really well. They tie this emotional connection into their characters, into their cards, into their design.
Yep.
And Magic, like they want all of that, but they don't do any of that. They do surface level stuff. They expect people to have the same reaction. And people are not going to have that same reaction. Go ahead.
They've dipped into it a little bit. Like a mono Liliana was perfect. That was what we needed.
Perfect example. That was a great example. By the way, I'm hyper bullish on those boxes. I have stacks of those boxes.
Can you explain what you're talking about, DJ?
Yeah.
So the Japanese War the Spark Liliana, what's the card's name? Liliana Dreadhorde General.
Dreadhorde General.
For those who don't know or who started playing Magic in the past couple of years, Liliana Dreadhorde General, if you had a Japanese War the Spark box, you could open an alternate art version of any of the Planeswalkers in there. And those Planeswalkers were drawn by some of the most iconic Japanese artists to ever do
and
like
mostly
manga or anime or anything like that. So the one that did Liliana Dreadhorde General was a very, very famous artist who did a lot of Final Fantasy work. And so if you've ever played any of that genre or that game, you can instantly look at that Liliana and be, wait, he did that. And then that Liliana goes for a lot of money and the foil goes for a lot of money.
Yeah, especially the graded one.
And they've dipped into it a little bit. Like they did the Metal Gear guy did the ninja card in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, but the card's like $2.
118 secret layers.
Like if they had done the Kaito, is it Umezawa or something? It's either Toshiro. Yeah. It's
the fact that you don't automatically know the character is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Like they did the anime thing, like the little anime trailer, and that was phenomenal, but it was 3 minutes long. Why didn't we get a 30-minute like anime that they could have timed it into it? And then we know who these characters are. They're new characters. You could have showed them a 30-minute. I mean, they're Hasbro, man. They're $1 billion. What did they do? They just said they profited $250 million this quarter. They have the money for these things. They just don't want to spend it.
I have a couple thoughts I want to put in here.
Yeah, go for it.
One of the interesting things I think is when you bring that up, it's just so difficult. Not difficult. It's just almost painful having these conversations in the year of our Lord 2022, because I remember writing an article in like 2015 being like, Hasbro's $1 billion company. Where are the advertisements on Mountain Dew cans? Where's the Jace on the corner aisle at Walmart? Like, yeah, none of this.
We've been promised a movie. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we've been promised a movie for 10 years.
You remember the movie? That's a meme. Remember the Russo brothers directing the TV show?
Okay. Yeah, they literally like retconned one of the only interesting like character developments, which was Nissa and Chandra, because of the market in China, because of the supposed TV show that we haven't heard shit about, right? Like, this is kind of like, you're absolutely right, DJ. Like, Magic could have all of it. Magic could be doing this. They could be exploring these other, and now all of that is other revenue streams. You know what I mean? Dude, let me just put it in perspective. And I learned this like, not recently, but recently enough to make me realize like Pokemon they are the king and they will be that way for a while. The Pokemon company is worth something like $130 or $140 billion. They're bigger than Star Wars and Marvel combined. Like, that's insane. But the other aspect, like this is something that blew my mind. They do about $1 billion in plushie sales every year, just in plushies. Like that's cute, Hasbro, that you made that much money last year. But this is like one part of their business that did that, and it's like one of the smaller parts of their business. They absolutely destroy. They're about to put out Scarlet Violet. They're going to put out 15 sets based on it, and they're just going to ride off of that content, tie it into comics, tie it into more plushies. Like Hasbro gave us Transformers, man. How the hell are they not using and D&D is another example. D&D kills it. They destroy. They do the media stuff really well. There's a movie coming out. They've had 4 movies. They have 100 novels. We don't have jack, right? And it's like, what are you guys? I understand you guys are making a load of money on the cardboard, but you could just be doubling down and doing this on every aspect. But they're not making they could be telling cool and interesting stories in this universe. And it's like you have to go try to find it in I
think they do tell those stories, but you're right. They tell them in one way,
and
which
so
is
inefficiently.
through some cards and maybe an article.
It's very inefficient. Yeah.
Yes, an article on the mothership, right? That's
I want to be invested in the Magic story.
You don't even want the weekly things anymore. Yep.
Let me give you my money, Hasbro. I want to watch a TV show. I want to watch a movie. I want to I want figurines
they get
that
it,
could be like,
right?
This
and
is the
so
thing.
it's frustrating because they get it. Hasbro talks about it, right? Hasbro's entire strategy, if someone who's been following their corporate earnings calls for a decade at this point, is that they want all of this. They've doubled down on making Magic a story brand, and it's a core brand, and it's not just they want all these other things, but at the same time they're kind of undermining their own, I don't know, potential at that by chasing money with literally there are 118 secret layers. So
there's going to be a lot more because that's one of the reasons why their profit was so high. They're just selling cards direct to players, which I'm kind of fine with. A lot of people don't the secret layers.
But when you're mining the IP of 100 properties that aren't your own.
So can I touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked about collectability, right? One of the reasons why Pokemon is so popular and why it's so collectible is that, let me give you an example. I don't have my slabs are in my car, but so this is
you're leaving stuff in your car, man. Come on.
It's cool. I got a pretty tight, really nice little garage. But anyway, so this is a Charizard V, right? You get this out of Champions Path. Like they're called fat packs in Magic, but they're called ETBs with everything else. It's like 10-pack little packs. You get this as a promo, right? This is about a $5 Charizard V. In the same set, you can get there's a different version of Charizard V. This is it's a shiny Charizard V, right? It's like $120 for a raw one, which means like not graded. And it's like 1 in 330 something packs. Okay. So it's 10 packs per ETB. So it's like 1 in 30 ETBs. So like 1 in like 10 or 12 boxes or something, right? You get $120 chase rare. That card and that art and that style and that shiny, like cool version will not be printed again. They'll print Charizard V 50 other times in 50 other sets. But every time they do it, it's very unique and it's like a chase rare. It's not like 1 in 10 packs or 1 in, and there's not 8 different versions. It's like there's one version per set. And that's the chase card of the set. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. So another good example is Masterpieces.
I was just 20
Masterpieces per set.
Magic tried that. We're like, oh, cool. We're getting the Soul Ring where one's 8,000 and one's $1. This is great. And then they do Invocations, and then they cancel it. Here's a couple good examples.
So here's a couple examples. So this is Groudon EX. It's like really textured. It's a really cool. So this is a textured card from Pokemon from like 2016 that looks kind of like the textured ones Magic came out with, but this is like 7 or 8 years old. Like they've been doing that long, right? Magic's just kind of getting on that. It's a secret rare. So this is another secret rare, Delta species Gyarados, right? This is kind of wrecked. That's why I'm holding it. Otherwise, this is usually an expensive card, but this is another one that's like it's like a chase, but they only do like 3 to 5 of these per set. They don't do 20, right? So, and only 1 or 2 of them are really like super valuable. So they keep the collectability by only giving you a little bit to collect at a time. They don't overdo it. Right?
I think Wizards, in my opinion, could have done Masterpieces for a very long time.
A long time.
I remember talking at the time about. I literally remember sitting in an airport writing an article about how they were blowing their load by doing like 15 ones per set, and then they were increasing the number or something. If they had
Yeah.
done 5 masterpieces per set, 4 sets a year, they could have done them forever.
Forever,
Well, they could
still be getting
ramp up
them.
the product rate. They could do 4 masterpieces a year.
Yeah.
If we get 10 sets a year, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you think, Kyle, about the colored Hidetsugus that
I think they were
Wizards put out?
fantastic. I
That's what
don't
I
know why
figured.
they didn't. Okay, I got
Yeah.
2 thoughts. Number one, these things exist in sports. They're called refractors. Okay, so you have like, let's say like this is your card. It's a Charizard V, right? And then you'll have like a gold version, a black version, and a silver, or a gold version and a black version. And the gold version is like, 5 times as rare as this one, and then the black version is 100 times, right? They already have that in sports. They just copied sports, which they've done a lot on a lot of shit. So collector boosters is a copy of sports. Box toppers is a copy of sports. They just like lag, right? They steal from other things, which is fine. That's totally fine,
And
right?
that's-
Stuff
that's
that
one of
works,
the
use it in your
things-
property.
Is I think Wizards has the power to lag. They can
Yeah.
they can
See
watch
what works.
they can watch Hearthstone come out in 2012, sit on it for 3 years, and be like, "All right, it's a thing. Yeah, we'll copy it."
We'll
And
copy
then
it. Yeah,
If
and
it
then,
burns out, then they don't copy it.
2019.
If it
And then
turns to be
Yu-Gi-Oh!
done,
do it.
they don't need to.
and then Yu-Gi-Oh! Do it and have like what I think like 5 or 6x the players still, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like so refractors, they're fantastic. They're hyper rare. They're chase. It doesn't really matter. I mean, look, they could have chosen better targets than Hidetsugu because nobody knows.
Sure.
Why is that card not the Tomio? Why is it not Tomio?
Thank you. That I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was like, okay, the first Phyrexian Planeswalker. That was the first really cool thing that they did
It
in
would've
a
been
while.
cool.
That I was
Would've
like, this
been
is
cool.
super cool. They like essentially like made one of the most like beloved Planeswalker characters evil.
And if they
So
undo
cool.
that, I will not forgive them.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for it. I'm just waiting for it because the way that they did Theros and Theros Beyond Death, I'm just like, okay, like it's probably gonna happen. I hope it doesn't. I hope they stick to their guns. But it should have been the Tameo, 100%.
Yeah, look, you're talking about the story here, and that's good. That's what they want, right? But you're also right that this is one of the very few stories you actually know in Magic
Yes.
because they have so few avenues to tell them.
You know what? They could have done
They
it in
don't
a
have
cooler.
anybody. There's nobody at the top. This is the problem with a lot of things in Wizards, in my opinion. There's very rarely somebody who has ownership of an entire project. They have no Kevin Feige at the top.
Yeah. They have no
coordinating
leader.
at all. They have a bunch of people managing their own departments
Yep.
and maybe doing a great job. I mean, clearly they had big plans. When you look at individual marketing plans for events, they've had really effective stuff. Worlds a few years back, they had some really cool stuff. The War of the Spark trailer
Was cool.
and the ones that followed for about a year were really neat. That was actually like must see when they released, like say the Eldraine one back then. I remember that stuff was really cool and a big
Yeah.
deal. And then they just stopped.
We were supposed to get a Theros book. We were supposed to get a book, and it was delayed for 6 months. And it's like, who gives a shit? It's 4 other sets by then. Like, who cares? Like, you're absolutely
There's
right.
also just too much going on in a lot of disparate ways
Yeah,
for anybody to care too much about one thing.
it feels like a rudderless boat, or it feels
Yep.
it feels like a rudderless boat. Like they try something for like not long enough, and then they just go back. The one I always go back to is Metamorphosis. They were supposed to change standard, the rotation was going to change, and the players got upset, and they just went back. And then we had like standard's been ruined ever since, right? So. You want to know my opinion on it? I think that they care too much what Magic players think. They need to have somebody in there that's like, nope, we're going to do it this way. We don't give a shit. We know where we're going with it. We have plans. You guys need to shut the f- up and watch us do it. That's what I think. They care too much about what players think, and they need to have a leader.
Oh.
They need an Alex Spears to be like, no, we're COVID is going to ruin everything. It's not going. We're going to stay the course, right? They need somebody exactly like you said to tie all of these things together. To a Kevin Feige to like do all of these things because Magic could be the best. And my business partner Rob completely disagrees. He's a hyper Pokemon thing. He thinks Magic we'll never see Magic like we did in 2015, 2016. That's his opinion. Sometimes I think that, but I really do still hold out a little bit of hope that they might get their shit together and tie all of these things together and do what they did with Magic, like they did with D&D, where it was like the nerdiest thing you could possibly do, and now it's one of the coolest things you can do, right? It's like the fact that those two companies exist under the same roof blows my mind because D&D does so well and Magic does it so poorly, you know?
It's weird because we do say all this and then Magic continues to make money. So
money. Yeah.
there are some people. I know failing upward has been a term that has used a lot.
Yeah.
And I know there are some people in the Discord server that you and I share, Kyle, that like disagree with that, and they're very evidence based. They'll say, well, Wizards is printing money. Clearly, they're not failing upwards. That they're very smart and they know what they're doing. But I think it's more of like they could be better, and it's like you can look at that graph and you can look at the vertical line graph, and it's like, yes, they're doing great, and then you put it next to a Pokemon graph, and it doesn't.
It dwarfs it. Yeah, it's like just do Google Trends Pokemon versus Magic. Like it's insane.
And here's the thing that we like. I always go back to is that all that means is that the business side of things has gone well, right? Like the Secret Lair team has done a great job existing. You know, that's what numbers mean in that sense. That doesn't mean that criticisms of a wholly different part of the company are any less valid. You know, so
I would say that like collector boosters are a great example because it's like you have to think about this from a raw materials to a product standpoint, right? Collector boosters didn't change much. They didn't really design much. They just have like a couple more designs they have a little bit more art. Yeah. They have a little bit more like art for the borders. They're printing physically a third of the amount of cards, right? A third less amount of cards per box for 2 or sometimes 3 times as much cost. So you're looking at like anywhere from a 6 to 9x multiplier in just the revenue they're making on the same raw product.
I paid $40 for 2 collector boosters over the weekend to support.
I think collector boosters are honestly. I think collector boosters are great if they had hyper chase rares.
That's the thing. They're great in concept.
Like
and they make them rough. They make them more. They seem to be getting worse as a concept over time.
I think they keep jamming it with too much stuff. Like so the Double Masters thing is really pissed me off because don't get me wrong. I think Double Masters 2 is one of the best products sealed that you can put your money in long term for Magic, period. Like that's ever been made. It's loaded with good shit. Yeah, that's my pick. That's my pick of the week. Buy Double Masters VIP box. And somebody was like, at what, or Double Masters 2 boxes. Somebody was like, well, at what number? I was like, anything under $400, like right now, they're going to be worth more than that. It's a matter of time. Like if you can put 10 of them away or something, or like 5 or whatever, and just forget about them for like 2 or 3 years, you'll be happy. Like,
and then you can put them on your desk and spill Red Bull on them.
Yeah,
the Corbin Hostler investment plan.
So like the textured foils is like there were 5 of them. Okay, what were we just talking about? Do 5 of them. Okay, they did that, but they're less rare than like random etched mythics. I'm sorry, what? Like, this is the first time you've done textured foils. They should be like 1 in 1,000 packs. They should be very hard. Like on pre-release, when we had the pre-release through the decades, we were like, these are really common. This sucks. There should be 1 in our store. You know what I mean? A guy should open up a Ren and 6 and be like, holy I got a textured rare, and that's the only guy that opens it out of 200 or whatever boxes we opened that day. Like, that's how it should be. But instead, it was like, hey, here's another cool thing we can add to your $75 packs. People would break these boxes like they do every other game, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball, if you could open a $1,000 card. Like, Dragon Ball's a great example. They have a Vegeta God Rare in one of the latest sets. That card's $2,000. It's 1 in 12 boxes or something. Like, people crack those boxes on Whatnot, on all these streams and stuff. People pay to watch it be cracked because you can get hyper value out of these boxes.
And we saw that in Battle for Zendikar. We're rehashing something for 7 years ago, and players are like, back then it's like, we want cheap standard cards, and every rare in Battle for Zendikar except for Gideon was $1.
Yeah, dude. It's like, if you're gonna sell $300 booster boxes like that are less cards than a regular booster box, you better have a $1,000 card in there that I can crack. Like, that's why it's like, it's exciting to get these cool cards, but it's like, you guys aren't focusing on the collectability aspect of it. Like, you need to make this hard to do.
They're just shoveling as much product as they can
out the door. Yep, that's what they're. Yeah, and like, I mean, shoveling like the hidden treasures thing. Like,
let's talk about that because before I'll give my, at the risk of being called a shill, I think the hidden treasures thing is awesome. So for those who don't know, Wizards literally found in a warehouse a bunch of unopened legends from 25 years ago. and they just decided to put it into collector boosters. Now, obviously, this is going to sell collector boosters, and it's only in like 3% or something. It's very small, but this is similar to something they did in the original Zendikar, where I think they called it priceless treasures.
Yeah,
Priceless legendary treasures or something.
Last week we touched on the fact that there was a leak and that there were possible hidden treasures. Yep. And then roughly 12 hours after we recorded our podcast, they make the announcement that officially. So I understand it does seem we're coming on this a little late, but I'm pretty sure
I was the person who made it public, but like
yes.
So we've heard like from the vendor community gets rumors all the time, right? Because it's our job to make money on this stuff. If I have an insider, whatever you want to call it, information, like how am I not supposed to use that? Or how am I not supposed to like, you know what I mean? I mean, look, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? But this is a luxury cardboard game. Like at the end of the day, like this isn't putting food on anybody's table, right? I'm not taking food off anybody's table. This is like a hobby, right? And it's a hobby that you can make money on, not only make money on, but get a lot of money out. Try scuba diving, right? People who complain about like the price of magic, this is just a little bit of a tangent, but people who complain about the price of magic, it's like do any other hobby. Play drums, $5,000 before you're even like, you know what I mean? And you can only get a little bit of that out, but
or even just like sports equipment, like
anything. Yeah. So like, I mean, so we've been hearing whispers of this for a while, for like a year and a half. It was like, there's rumors that they want to do this again. But it was nothing concrete until like last week, I think. And then in the Discord that we're talking about, somebody leaked it. And then I was like, wait, what? And then I reached out to a couple of my contacts and they were like, yeah. And then when I tweeted it, I had like literal Wizards employee go like, dude, how the hell did you find this out? And I was like, bro, first off, I'm not going to give you my source. Second off, like, bro, you guys have a leaky ship. You guys have leaks all the time. Konami doesn't have leaks. Pokemon doesn't have leaks, right? You guys are pretty much bad about this. So, anyway, like, also, just to touch on it, they didn't find those boxes. They had those boxes this whole time. Like, if they're going to misplace $2.5 million in boxes, because that's what those are worth now, probably more than that. Come on.
I think they knew
they
they
had those boxes.
Listen. I'll say that if you don't want to take their story at face value, it may be a thing of cleaning out the vault.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was, so the other rumor is that they're going to do this again with Revised, and it's a pretty credible rumor. So I tweeted about it, but this is the first time I'm actually talking about it. But yeah, the other rumor is that dual lands are going to be in packs eventually, like real dual lands. So
I do think that is more hype than Legends cards.
I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Legends is such a weird set that has such a few number of. Like, Tabernacle's not hype. It's like we were talking about for 30 minutes. Tabernacle's not Vegeta. It's not Liliana. It's whatever. And the characters in Legends are not hype unless you like.
That's correct.
Unless you need a colonoscopy. Like, that there's no. Like, there's going to be somebody that opens up, like, Hangus McFlangleberry or whatever. I don't know.
Angus McKenzie.
And they're going to scan it on their TCG app and it's going to say $300 and then their local game store owner's not going to want to buy it because that card doesn't sell. Like,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. There's no liquidity. Yeah. I mean, like Tabernacle.
Of those.
Yeah. So I think it's cool from a nostalgia factor. I think one of the things that Magic fails is like building up that nostalgia. Or no, I'm sorry. They both fail by not doing it enough, and they win when they do it. Like Modern Horizons 1 and 2. Like seeing Yawgmoth as a card, as somebody who's been playing since I was 11, fucking awesome, right? But the fact that they didn't have a comic or like a TV show or a little 30-minute anime special about
look, like, and here's the thing, listen, those are big things you're talking about. So someone at home sitting here going, well, of course they can't just spin up a TV show, blah, blah, blah. But listen, we bring them up all the time, but go look at Riot Games and look at the things they produce to go along with their releases. So it's not just, the options aren't, make an anime or not. There's web comics, like you meant. There's just so many things that even Overwatch would do when there are lots of options that, and Wizards does basically none of them. Wizards puts out money one time for a preview video at the beginning of a set, and that's it.
So you touched on Riot. I was literally talking to my business partner last week. I was like, the best case scenario would be Riot bought WotC. That would be awesome because they kill it on all the stuff we've been talking about.
I think more likely Disney by Hasbro.
I mean, I don't know. Disney might just be like, crank that money machine up, make it go burr. Like, you know, like, so like, as far as like the legendary treasures thing go, you're right. Like there's a little bit of nostalgia, but it's again, the box toppers being like Ramiro de Petri or whatever. They're like trying to touch on this nostalgia that only exists for people like me, who's almost 40. You want 15-year-olds, you want 14-year-olds playing your game because kids are what make things cool. Like kids make League cool, kids make Pokemon cool, kids make Yu-Gi-Oh cool. They don't really market to kids anymore. Magic is not cool. Like it's cool to be a nerd, yeah, but like it's not cool. And it's like the box toppers, I was like, man, it's going to be really cool when you open a 50-cent Ramirez de Prezzo as your box topper or whatever. Like it's like they don't think about like that type. Like they say they don't think about the secondary market. They obviously do. They wouldn't be putting like
that's
$3,000 tabernacles in the freaking packs. But
I don't. Okay, so nobody has ever said they don't think about the secondary market. It's they don't publicly acknowledge the secondary market.
Sure,
there is a difference
fair,
there.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
They are not under any disillusion of not thinking about it.
It's simply about not putting anything in writing that would.
It is more.
Yeah,
of
and
like,
they tiptoe around that so much. Like Konami will literally say like we're selling like lottery packs. Like they don't give a shit. And then the thing. This is the same with sports. It's the same with Pokemon. Pokemon publishes the odds of cards whenever they do a new set. You can find the odds of pulls. It's lottery. Like they don't want to say the L word, right? Because of the lawyers, and the lawyers basically run Hasbro from what I gather. But it's I don't know, man. It's like they do some things right, and then it's like they didn't think long enough to flesh it completely out.
Yeah. Look. Let's talk about some of these other games. So when you For people who may not know, when you're talking about we've mentioned a handful here. What is sort of the when you go to an event that is sort of a generic TCG con event type thing? Mm-hmm. What sort of the tier, not tier list, I guess, but like what is how much do people care about these different games? You know, is Dragon Ball a real thing people play? You know,
yeah.
Flesh and Blood, anything you see in the wild, Yu-Gi-Oh, but like what do you actually see at an event like that?
So Pokemon is S tier.
Pokemon
mm-hmm. is just like people will bring slabs and they'll bring like cool older. They'll bring vintage. They'll bring modern. Everybody wants Pokemon in our experience. These mixed venue, these mixed game shows. It's Pokemon, then a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, then a little bit of Dragon Ball, then a little bit of Digimon, then a little bit of Weiss Schwartz. Then way down here is like, I'm not kidding, Flesh and Blood. And then Magic. Like, wow. A lot of people at these mixed events, they don't even know Magic. They're like, oh, what's this? Because like when you look at, okay, just on my desk, right? I have Presence of the Master from Legends. I have Pokemon, right?
Hey, that one's cool.
Another cool Pokemon, Reverse Hollow, right?
Cool too.
I have Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So
that one's pretty neat.
Cool little gold one. And then I have Dragon Ball, which is like textured, right? The Dragon Ball cards are really, really cool. Digimon does this too.
Hey, that one in the back is boring. That card in the back, it's horrible.
That's exactly what I was getting at. It's like they look at the cases. There's like the older Magic, the older, more expensive Magic cards are not flashy. I hate telling the story because it's like it pains me, dude. At Collecticon Dallas, it was a massive, or it may have been, was it Dallas? It doesn't matter. It was a big Collecticon. Collecticon's one of the bigger ones. There's TCG cons where they do tournaments. Then there's Collecticon, which is like more for collectors, right? It's mostly Pokemon at the Collecticon events, but there's like 20,000 people there. They're big events. The TCG con was, how many people do you think was at TCG con? Like 2,000 or 3,000 maybe tops? It was like a medium
sounds high.
GP. Yeah, it was like a medium GP, like 12.
I was gonna say like 12 to 1,500.
Yeah. So these Collecticons are massive, dude. Vanilla Ice plays with the Ninja Turtles, like it's like a kind of nostalgia, whatever. But at one of these events, Heritage was doing 4 box breaks, okay, in order. They were doing a beta box.
What is Heritage?
Oh, I'm sorry. Heritage is Heritage Auctions. They're one of the bigger auction houses for collectibles. So they were breaking a beta box. Okay. Yeah. Everybody, like we were all like, holy shit, a first edition Pokemon box, a MetaZoo Kickstarter box, which is about $50K, and a Yu-Gi-Oh! LOB
Is that
first
real?
edition box.
MetaZoo.
MetaZoo. Oh, I have lots of thoughts on MetaZoo, but
Let's not. Yeah. Okay.
we can. That's for another time. But they did the beta box first. Nobody gave a shit. A guy opened. Okay, the voice of Pokemon who sings the original Pokemon song. He opens a pack of beta. I'm watching this because I'm enthralled. There's 12 people. There's 20 people maybe watching. Out of 20,000, they're on stage. There's a giant stage set up. There's like all these different like celebrity breakers or whatever, and all these other people. The voice of Pokemon opens a pack, and it's a fucking beta trop. And he does this. He like opens it and he does like this to look at there's no foiling on it, right? So he's like, it's a tropical island. And like, I'm like going, that's fucking awesome. And I'm looking around. Nobody cares. They open the beta box, they open the MetaZoo box, applause. Everybody's like, hell yeah. The LOB box, they opened a Blue Eyes White Dragon. People love that shit. And then they open a first edition Pokemon box and they had like 9 holos or something. A first edition Charizard holo. People were like, the whole building was around this stage, right? So it's just, it doesn't resonate
I think
with like people under 30.
Yeah.
This is
very, very good information for people.
It doesn't resonate with people under 30 the way these other games do. And it's like, as somebody who's been in Magic since, like I said, I was 11. So I started in Revise in 94. That's when I started playing Magic. Like, so it's so heartbreaking to just kind of see the difference between these games, you know, specifically Pokemon and Magic, because Pokemon was always like a little kid's game to me. But what I didn't understand, and what my business partner Rob explained to me, because he's like 2 or 3 years younger than me, he grew up with Pokemon, and it stays with you. Grandmas know what Pokemon are. Grandma would probably say like, "Oh, I know what a Charizard is." My mom would have known. Like,
that is how we all explain our jobs to people.
Yeah, exactly.
I buy and sell Magic the Gathering cards. Wait, what's that? Have you heard of Pokemon?
Adult Pokemon?
That's exactly right. Yeah, like sounds like a bar.
I really like a quote from our friend Cass. Pokemon are all shaped like friends.
They're what?
She said this in Vegas. Pokemon are all shaped like friends.
Yes. They're. My business partner Rob said something similar. He said, you can always tell, like, if it's a Pokemon or if it's a knockoff, because Pokemon have a specific like design language, if you will, right? And it resonates with people. It really, really does. Like, I didn't really get it until I played Legends Arceus, and now I completely understand. I'm like, oh, this is a lifestyle. Like, this is something that encompasses everything, you know?
Okay, we have done a lot of non-Magic stuff, but for the sake of our patrons and our listeners who want to stick with Magic through the thick and thin, we do try to give a little bit of Magic financial advice on every episode, even if it is against our will. So let's do Pick of the Week.
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
JJ can just ninja my words in and say Pick of the Week instead of Breaking Bulk, and I don't have to repeat it.
Okay, great.
So,
and then he can keep the part of me saying to do that afterwards if it sounds bad. Perfect.
So do you want my pick?
I mean, you can run back Double Master Sealed if you want, but
I'm gonna run back Double Masters. Period. I think Double Masters singles are all pretty undervalued right now. They're at the peak supply. Like, I was just pricing cards yesterday, and I was like, how are these like casual staples so cheap right now? How is like Colligan's Command like $2? Like, I was like, what is happening? You just buy everything. You buy all. It's the same cycle. These sets come out. They're loaded with the really, really good stuff stays high, but all the rest just gets cratered and then it goes right back up. So you can't really go wrong with most of the stuff in Double Masters.
We've seen this pattern before with stuff like Doubling Season from last Double Masters. Like, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
My pick of the week is another constructed staple that recently got hit in a sneaky little reprint that you might not have noticed. Mutavault is like $4 again.
Crazy.
Because they put
Pretty cheap.
Mutavault in a commander deck, and people are still complaining that they put bad cards in the land section of commander decks.
Sure.
It's in the party time deck, which is the black-white deck from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, and is focused on the weird-ass party mechanic that Zendikar Rising did. But Mutavault is a changeling, so it is technically an entire party all in one. But that deck itself, if you want to go on another level, is also just a very good pick because it has Deep Gnome Terramancer, which is $12-ish. It has Black Market Connections, which is $15-ish. It has a Skull Clamp, which is $6 or so. And then it has 95 plus other cards in it. So that entire deck you could get on Amazon for a while for like $35. I don't know if you still can. But that entire deck is just chock full of good cards, both new and old. But Mutavault is, I guess, my base pick because it's 4 and it'll probably go to 8 or 9 again.
Can I touch on the Amazon thing for a minute? So,
Sure.
Amazon, the way that they release seal product, they release it in waves. So if it's not like it's direct from distributor, right? So if it seems like the price is like a little high, just wait. There are like Chrome plugins that you can get that will like tell you when stuff restocks on Amazon.
That's
yeah,
good.
and so I mean, I can't remember the ones off the top of my head, but like when it restocks, they restock a ton, and it restocks at like less than distributor price. So like, just keep looking, basically, is what I'm saying. And that goes for everything that's being every sealed product that Wizards will sell on Amazon. That goes for all of that. They just dump a ton, and then it's gone within like 8 hours or so. So just keep looking if it's not at the price you want it at.
I mean, the Chrome plugin thing is a very, very good piece of advice that is like very efficient. I like nobody wants to keep looking on stuff like that, but if you can automate things, that's always excellent.
Yeah, that was an innovation with the sneaker groups. So sneakers would restock at certain times, and you'd get like a flash in your Discord, and then that now they switch it over to Amazon because there's other Amazon drops like sports card drops on Amazon that it works for. So you're like, oh, it's in stock now, and you just scoop it up.
It's pretty helpful for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll finish off my pick of the week. Courtesy, as always, all of our pick of weeks come from mtgstocks.com, generous sponsor of this podcast. Remember, you should always go check out the premium side of that website. It'll give you the latest information. You can set alerts. Speaking of, we were just talking about how helpful alerts can be. You can get all that and more on the premium side of MTG Stocks. It's where we go for all the best Magic and Pokemon financial information to stay ahead of the game and make really good picks like the Kaldheim lands. I think in general, most of those lands are just solid lands that are probably eventually going to be in the $5 to $10 range instead of the $3 to $5 range. I'm not sure which particular version you would want, but they have the benefit of, you know, whether it's turn 1 or turn 4, giving you whatever color you need at the time. So they found a home, especially we start talking Pioneer and stuff like that. They've just kind of got some good upside. And Kaldheim was one of those sets that was lost to the pandemic.
Which
I
pathway is your
completely agree.
favorite, Corbin?
I
Which
think
one?
those lands are great.
Blue-green one. It's awesome.
What's its name?
Who knows?
Blue-green one. I don't know.
Does it
Clear-
cast Parallel Lives?
It's the water. Oh, come on, man.
Oh yikes! That's a low blow. That hurts.
Well, that would make
hurts
sense,
me.
right? Because it's wet. Well, now that they've dried out, they're still ruined. So there's that.
Just sell them on
Yikes.
Twitter, man. You know, sell them for
That's
buy
a-
list on Twitter, and you'll be good.
What I should have done already.
Yeah. So I think those. I want to touch on that a little bit. I think those lands are fantastic. I would go as far as to say like they might hit 10, 12, maybe 15, depending on how long they go without a reprint. And also, I think the versions you should pick up are the regular, the borderless, and the borderless foil, and stay away from everything else.
Yeah, regular
Yeah, the
foils
border-
are just completely dead in the
Yeah,
water.
the borderless
absolutely.
is my favorite.
They're not only
in
they're
general
not they're
on
supposed
these.
to be the same price, but they're not because the volume you don't
Yes.
sell them. They do not sell regular foils.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's just like why, you know?
Yeah, it's just like a
It's just
whatever.
like, why
version.
does this even exist? And you know why they exist? To round out collector boosters. with
That's
cards
exactly
you don't
right.
want.
100%. Yeah.
It just was painful. I spent $44 after tax on 2 new Capenna collector boosters. I was like, it's great. I want to support the store. I didn't open. I think I maybe opened $4 worth of value. And there's so many you get foil commons in a
Yeah.
$20 booster pack.
It's funny because
What?
if they just
What?
like if they made collector boosters the same price, excuse me, and they were the only thing you could get the special border stuff in, and they didn't make everything foil, right? So you just got regular boosters,
Yeah.
but you could get like 5 slots of good shit. Everything would still be like real numbers. They'd be high priced, right? Because they're just inundating everything underneath a certain like border or whatever. So now you have like the top end stuff is worth money. Everything else is worthless. Whereas they could just cut, if they just didn't overflow with the foils, you could, your stuff would still be worth money. I wish they would just consult some of us, like they wish they would just consult like store owners and be like, hey, what stuff sells, what stuff doesn't. Well, regular foils don't sell at all for any card unless it's like an old, cool vintage version. Like a foil, a foil original Parallel Lives would be worth a lot of money, right? But like, yeah,
even then it's got a judge foil, so.
Yeah, but I still think that there's something to say about vintage hollows, or I say hollow. See, Pokemon's got me. Vintage foils from a certain time period before they like had 19.
Yeah.
Like before cons,
Yeah.
when they started doing the date stamp stuff, like that's where they started going overboard. Anything before that, the foil is still worth money and still worth picking up. But after that, it's just like whatever. It's just like whatever.
Yep. It hits different at events too. Like you're just pulling foils. It's like whatever. And then at this recent event, I pulled like a foil Salvera Queen of the Golgari from like Ravnica. And I was like, oh,
that's
yeah.
Cool. That's sick. Yeah, that's actually
And that's
cool.
an actual cool card because the non-foil was like what, like $2 and then the foil was 80 or something.
Yeah, because it's like, isn't it like played like heavily in like certain Golgari decks and stuff in Commander and like
It was my first Commander card, so that's another card where it's like they
That's
can
pretty
tell a
cool,
story with
yeah.
that if they choose to invest in characters, but like, yeah.
but they don't. And look, just to tie what I was trying to say together, I'm not trying to on Magic. It sounds like I'm just trying to over Hasbro and WotC. I'm not trying to do that. I live
It's
and
out of
breathe
love.
this stuff.
It is out of love.
Yeah, I live and breathe the stuff, and now that I've expanded my horizons to all these other things and see what like Dragon Ball's doing well and what Yu-Gi-Oh's doing well and Pokemon, I'm like, why isn't Magic doing any of it? And it's like you see some of the higher up people talking about just Magic stuff, and it's like, dude, just look at what Dragon Ball's doing. We had a couple people come to our booth that knew nothing about the card game, but he was like, yo, show me all the like $5 cool Vegetas you have. And I was like, here you go. He bought like 20 of them because he's like, all these are cool. I was like, do you play the game? He's like, hell no, I don't play this game. I just think this is cool. It's cool artwork. Who's going to do that with Jace, man? The coolest thing they could do with Jace is kill him.
Oh, no. What you're going to do is you're going to pay Wizards of the Coast $50, $80 for the premium version to get yourself a Vegeta that you can play at your commander table.
I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine.
Well, that's where I mean,
Okay,
that's where we're at. So that's good.
We've
because
given
it is coming.
We've given the Wizards plenty of advice about the direction to take their game. We've given players plenty of advice to the direction to take their dollars for improving the value of their collections. Kyle, do you have any advice for players who might be looking to branch into another game, or like where do you start if you're like, you know what? I played Pokemon as a kid. I know the IP, but I know nothing about the cards. Where do you turn? Like, where do you put somebody on that path? How do you get them into the Pokemon TCG?
This is the Pokemon TCG. The Pokemon TCG.
Like, I'm a Magic player. Pretend I know nothing about Pokemon except for
Yeah.
that. Like, I used to play it as a kid on the Game Boy, and I want to get into the cards. What do I do?
The Pokemon TCG is very RNG heavy, so keep that in mind. It's more akin to Hearthstone. I mean, there are cards that say like draw 7 cards and they're unplayable, right? So like Pokemon TCG is very RNG based. I would say a better transition would be Yu-Gi-Oh. I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a lot easier for Magic players to transition into. It's very complex like Magic is, and this is a real spicy take. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh is going to overtake Magic as the competitive card game that people play to a mass level. Like Magic, I think if they don't get their shit together with the competitive aspect, Yu-Gi-Oh is quickly going to overtake them before they even know it. Because not only is the online client exploding, like hugely, but like we've seen tremendous growth in the store just on people interested in new Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a really good crossover. And if you want to play a card game, I think Pokemon is more for collectors. I think if you want to collect stuff, you want to put money into stuff, I think Pokemon is by far the best. I think Dragon Ball is really underrated right now because of the reasons I just explained. I think that there's not as much like finance information about these games as there is Magic.
Right.
Instagram is really big on a lot of these games. If you're trying to find hard to find cards, a lot of that stuff is now on Instagram. It's like influencers and stuff peddling this stuff instead of big stores. There are a lot of big stores and stuff. Like we're eventually going to have pretty soon, hopefully, a website where you can just go and buy and fill out your collection with slabs and stuff like that, right? But that's kind of how it works with the collectability of Pokemon. It's more like piecemeal, right? And because Pokemon is really hard to find a lot of stuff. So let's say there was a card kingdom for Pokemon, which there's not. And like they won't have everything. They won't have 20% of everything because it's really, really hard to find a lot of these cards, because they do special
It's like
editions
TCG
and
player
they don't reprint
bust.
it. Yeah, it's essentially TCG player or bust for a lot of the non-slab stuff, but that's the thing. Pokemon players care about slabs. That's another way that makes it collectible. Magic players don't care about slab in their cards except for very, very old stuff. I think that might change with like the Hitotsugus. You're seeing slabs of those come up. You're seeing the Amano Lily's a great example of slabs that come up. Like if they can capture people and start and if we can start like telling Magic collectors like, yo, slab your stuff will go up way more in value.
Extended art jewel Lotus stuff. Foils.
Great. Yeah, I have 2 of those. I got 3 of them graded. They all came back PSA 9s. I was so upset. And I have a reason for doing PSA over BGS. It's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I think that if you want to play another game, a competitive game, Yu-Gi-Oh is where you want to be. I heard Dragon Ball is very similar. I haven't played it. But if you want to collect, Pokemon's where you want to be.
All right. I think this was lots of great information for people, for sure. Where can people find you, Kyle, across the internet as well as in person if they wanted to go check some of this out? You
Cool.
have any shows or conventions
Yeah,
coming up?
I am, like I said before, I'm Bash McAllister on Twitter, Bash McAllister on Instagram. We sell stuff through cardrich.io, through our Instagram. We do shows under the Card Rich banner. We did TCGCon this weekend. We're going to be at every Collecticon for the rest of the year. We're going to start branching out into anime cons. We haven't really put any of that together. We're going to try to start doing the bigger shows too. So most of the bigger trade shows with multiple games we're going to try to hit. But right now it's just the Collecticons for the rest of this year. And then through the decades in Louisville, Kentucky, it's a destination store. I'm telling you, if you're 2 or 3 hours away and you're like, I want to go to the coolest collectible store I've ever seen, this is the place. And
I'd like to go. The only times I've been to Louisville before were for GPs, and all I remember about the place is that the convention center smells like a rodeo.
Yeah, because it's literally the horse fairgrounds.
And there's always a show the weekend before.
Yeah, and also
I'd love to go to the store instead.
Not to plug another podcast, but me and Tarkin Dopsel are thinking about putting together like an industry specific podcast. We don't have any, concrete stuff yet, but check out my Instagram and my Twitter. You can keep up to date with what we decide to do with that if we actually get off our asses and do it.
Well, thanks again for coming on. This was good. Last week we went very deep on the Magic stuff, and this week we got to talk about some other stuff. It was pretty neat. Jason, I hope you had fun in Seattle. We'll see you next week, perhaps. Everyone, go follow Kyle on the internet. If you want to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/BSB.
Corbin. Patreon is so 2014. We've been talking so much about how to make money in the modern era. Like Patreon and Wizards are just so far behind. You know what's cool? Coalesce. Cool. Supreme is cool, Corbin. Supreme is cool. Branding is cool. Apparel is cool. Coalesce is cool.
I wore my Coalesce Brainstorm.
Our stuff is on Coalesce. Snuggled. I said snuggled in between the Ristic Studies brand and the Casual Magic brand. 2 of the other coolest content creators on the website. You can find Brainstorm Brewery at Coalesce. We have shirts and hoodies that are extremely comfortable. They will keep you nice and warm through the upcoming nuclear winter that Jason likes to talk about. I feel like we can't go an episode of Brainstorm Brewery without Jason doomsaying about that. So there's Jason's little pick of the week is Coalesce hoodies that will be a nice little pillow and or shirt and or hoodie for you.
There you go. All right, everybody. Check that out. Coalesce Apparel, Brainstorm Brewery, gift code We'll see you next time on the podcast. One final note of advice. It's not nuclear winter you have to worry about. It's nuclear summer.